Welcome to Bastion, one of my favorite games of the entire year. It's the first game made by the newly created studio, Supergiant Games, and it plays like an incredible action RPG with fantastic story and atmosphere. Before the release, there wasn't much hype. Reviewers were questioning whether the narration feature would be enough to carry the game out of ARPG mediocrity. When the game was released in July, it was obvious that the game met all expectations and then some. Although it came out a while ago, I wanted to review it since it's one of my favorite games of the entire year. Bastion's unique premise, and perhaps one of its best features, is the narrator. If you haven't heard about the game, there's constantly someone narrating your actions. A combination of clever writing, skillful programming, and great voice acting brings him to life. He always says just enough, but never enough to get annoying. He reacts to what you do on screen and can be fairly dynamic. For example, if you start hitting random spots on the screen, he'll say something like, "The kid rages for a while." Even though this doesn't sound impressive on its own, the amount of dynamic lines that are voiced are incredible. Although I found the narrator to be the most unique and interesting feature, it wasn't my favorite. This game has one of the most memorable video game soundtracks of all time. It's so goddamn good that it's taken up top spots on my music player. Every single track is unique, and I think it's the only soundtrack, including a few songs with vocals, that I actually enjoy. Darren Korb, who composed the entire soundtrack, outdid himself there, and I hope he sticks around for whatever Supergiant Games creates next. The gameplay in Bastion is pretty standard for an action RPG. You won't be going around collecting different colored loot, but the combat, pacing, and RPG mechanics are very well polished, making the game very fun to play. Bastion is fairly linear, but when it comes to the gameplay systems, it does give you a good amount of choices. The combat feels extremely solid. There are 11 weapons in total, all upgradable with different upgrade choices. The weapons are also very distinct from one another, yet they really feel balanced. The weapons are split between ranged and melee weapons. You can carry 2 weapons at once, and each has their own special abilities. Enemies are all extremely varied, and have some excellent design. The pacing in Bastion is fantastic. The game is broken up into levels, and each level offers something new, such as weapons or new encounters. Some fairly difficult challenge courses are dotted throughout the game that reward players for completing them. There are also several other RPG mechanics. There's a distillery with various spirits you can unlock which provide you with buffs. There's also a shop which sells items that give you the ability to upgrade your weapons. Finally, there's a shrine which lets you increase the game's difficulty by altering specific things about enemy behavior. For example, you can give enemies more health or just make them gain temporary invincibility. These modifiers actually reward the player with additional experience and money. Bastion doesn't really do a whole lot wrong. My biggest complaint with the game is that it's just too damn short. My first playthrough took me no longer than 6 hours, although through multiple playthroughs, that number doubled. There is a New Game Plus in the game to extend its length, allowing you to start from the beginning with all your upgraded weapons, spirits, items, and experience. Supergiant Games have created one of the most well-crafted action RPGs in a long time. With the combination of solid gameplay, great storytelling via narration and atmosphere, and my favorite video game soundtrack in the last 10 years, Bastion earns my favorite personal game of the year. I give Bastion a 9 out of 10. If you haven't played it yet, and you're a fan of engaging action RPGs, make sure you pick up this game.